I got to say, of all the, we've been doing the fulfillments now for how long, Heather? A year, the last year about? And I got to say, this is probably the best looking group. It really is, with the exception of maybe Pierre. Where's Pierre at? Where's Pierre at? Where's Pierre? Okay, yes. Oh, that's right in the back. How did you get way in the back? Well, that's a good place to keep you. Let's just keep you back there. So, how many of you were totally digging what we talked about yesterday? Okay, just show of hands. All right, very good. How many of you have questions on any of that now that you've had a chance to marinate and eat dinner? And how many people, was that cool downtown, the ones that went downtown, right? Anybody else do anything different that was awesome? No, okay. Sorry to rub it in your face then. Sorry about that. Anybody have any questions? Pierre, yes. Where's Tyler? Tyler, can you be my guy to run around? I would not make fun of your pants unless they look ridiculous. Hold on. You're wearing parachute pants again! You've got brown parachute pants. Pierre's got a question in the back there. Brown, yesterday was black, today's brown. My goodness.
Testing 1, 2.
Yes. Yes, Pierre.
Last night was just awesome. I would just like to know how you arranged to have 1,000 naked people in downtown Chicago. How riding bikes? How did you do that?
They're my friends, first of all. Number one. Number two, Heather doesn't allow them in the house, but they are my friends. But they were riding through the streets. What's the big deal? What's that? Yeah, they get the furniture dirty.
And how come you didn't have a bike for me?
Well, we took a vote, Pierre, and the premise of the vote was, would we like to see Pierre naked? And it was an overwhelming no. You're the only one. Does anybody have any questions at all on what we talked about yesterday? All that we did yesterday is something that I feel like I've not only been doing, but I've had to do my whole career as an entrepreneur. And I think when you become an entrepreneur, it's not about competition. So I wasn't competing against those companies. It's all about creativity. Absolutely. Creativity trumps competition every day. Every day. So you may want to say, well, how do I compete against these guys? You might want to say, how do I create against these guys or my competition? The other thing that I wanted to mention was I really think that you guys could use that strategy to buy property with no money or little money down. Now, I'm not telling you that you don't have to use those ratios, which, by the way, when I walk by someone's table and they have their notes, their cheat sheet out like this, Heather, this is the stuff that turns me on, okay? That's really, you know what I'm saying? Cash return on investment, value, cap rate. Oh, God. I really think, I like that, I appreciate that, but I want you to memorize it. Know that value is net operating income divided by cap rate. Know that cash return on investment is cash flow divided by initial investment. Know the 4 ways that we get paid in real estate: cash flow, appreciation, depreciation, and amortization. Debt service coverage ratio shows us the relationship between our net operating income and our debt service. So NOI over debt service. When you know those, you can explain them. And when you explain them, can you kind of tell when somebody is BSing you just by the way they're explaining something? That's because they don't know it. When you know it, the way you explain it happens. It becomes you, and they know that you're for real. And I think it betters your chances in getting financing, in getting a partner, in getting a lender, whatever. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay. Here's the other thing. let's say, knock on wood, let's say that Heather says, John, you're just too good looking for me. Let's just say she says that.
I don't think we need to knock on wood.
We don't have to worry about that, you're saying?
I don't think
And she says, you know, I'm going to go and I'm taking everything with me and all of this stuff. And I find myself distraught and all of this stuff, but let's say I have no business anymore and I had to start from ground zero. What would I do? Well, I would use the same thought process that I've done my whole career. Is I would just create it and I would build it. And I would either sell it or I would work off the cash flow of it, something like that. So let's say that I wake up this morning and I've got nothing. And I want you to, put that picture in your mind. What would you do? What would you do? What would you do?
I'd call you.
You'd call me, okay. What would you do, Sam? You don't know. You don't have an answer.
No.
Sarah, what would you do? You'd buy real estate. What if you had no money, no income?
I'd sell Daryl's arm.
You'd sell Daryl's arm. Okay, all right. The point I'm trying to make is, if I had zero, what I would do, I get it. What I would do is, I would, again, use the same process that I would use here. And that process is this. I would create the money. And you're probably saying, John, what the hell are you talking about? Well, up until this point, at this event, I've taught you a lot of different things. But one of the things I taught you was how to establish value in commercial real estate. And the other thing that I taught you was how to increase value in commercial real estate. Those two pillars, you remember those? Establishing value has a lot to do with the net operating income of the property divided by the market cap rate. Increasing value on the real estate has a lot to do with increasing rents, submetering the building for water, selecting a new service contractor, cutting the grass, things like that, protesting the taxes, putting water-saving devices on faucets, showers, things like that. And all of those things, I think, make you valuable. So what I would do, this is what I would do, is I would probably start a consulting company. And I learned this from the person that I used to protest my real estate taxes. And their scenario is, hey, we'll come in, we'll study your property, and if we can reduce your taxes by any amount, you'll pay us. If we do not reduce your taxes, you don't pay us. And I thought, man, that's a pretty cool thing. I've got nothing to lose. So that was their pitch. So I would become a consultant, multifamily or maybe even commercial property consultant, in which if I drove the value of your property up, I would take a clip of that, whatever that increase would be. If I don't, you don't pay me a dime, you've got nothing to lose. So I go back to the tax consultant guy. And the tax consultant guy says, if I reduce your taxes, let's say I reduce them by $10,000. It's a big property. All I want to take is a 25% clip of that. So I pay that consultant $2,500. If you take that same premise and move it over to the consulting side and say, hey, I'm going to consult with you on your property and take a 25% clip of whatever I increase the property by, that would be my business. You could actually do that business without even having to worry about getting a loan, without even having to worry about the down payment on a piece of real estate. Now the whole, same thing. You're going to set up a company and do that. I just want you to give you food for thought here. So let's go to this example that I gave you yesterday, okay? $1 million property. okay, $1 million property, and we go in and we contract with the owner. You're going to put a consulting contract in place. And this contract says that you're going to do X, A, B, and C, and probably X, Y, and Z to drive value. And because you have a contract in place, the owner is going to have some responsibilities as well. So you're going to do A, B, and C, and X, Y, and Z. Okay? So that when you get done, the property is worth $1.4 million. Now, when you got a property that you've just driven value from $1 million to $1.4 million, you have a difference of $400,000. You're going to charge $100,000 to do that. If I was a property owner and somebody said, hey, I'm going to increase the value of your real estate massively, but I want a 25% clip. Now, I'm just using 25 as an example. You might start your company and say, I'm going to charge 20 or 15 or 30. I don't know where that is, but somewhere in that realm. So I'm going to do this over a period of a few months, charge 25%, take the $100,000. Now, how many people see the simplicity in that? Just by a show of hands here. Okay, cool. Let's just say that I'm using this as a vehicle. I'm using this as a vehicle to ultimately buy cash flowing real estate. Let's say I started this and this whole process is going to take me about, just to be conservative, 2 years. And how many times in 2 years do you think you could do this right here? If you had your business set up once a quarter, once every 6 months, is that okay? We use that as an example. You could see that, Sam?
Yeah.
Okay. So in 2 years, we do 4 of these. And if we do 4, we have how much set aside here? 400,000. That's kind of where I want to take this to from here. Okay? So you all know the basic premise. I want to take this now and say, okay, we've got $400,000 to work with. We've been working our consulting company. We've done it 4 times in 2 years. Some of you may do it 8 times in 2 years. Some of you may do it 1 time in 2 years. I don't know what that is. I just want you to get the overall picture here. So 400,000, let's say that we're looking to leverage this money out in something called an 80-10-10. 80% bank financing, 10% seller financing, and 10% down payment. Okay? What's that?
That's going to be a big building.
It's going to be a big building. So Raphael knows that because we're going to leverage out $400,000, meaning we're going to be able to buy how much worth of real estate? $4 million. Everybody see that? Okay. So this is bank financing. That's seller financing. That's down payment. Okay, so if we leverage this out and we buy $4 million worth of real estate, and let's say that we're buying that in an area that we're buying them at $50,000 a unit, okay? $50,000 per unit. So at $4 million to spend, at $50,000 per unit, how many units is that? 80. Okay, very good. Does anybody know the average rent in America today? 800? Little high. It's actually just under 750. That's the average across the board. So if we took 80 Does somebody, by the way, that's sitting up front here, could somebody be today my calculating engineer? You can? This is a big responsibility. Paula, are you sure?
Yep.
Hold on.
This is one of the things he's got.
Is he,
There you go. See?
Don't get too close.
is he going to be
Stay
good
away
at this?
from my wife, John.
Oh, I gotcha. When somebody approaches Paul's wife, he makes these crazy whale sounds. I don't know. I don't know if that's supposed to be a deterrent or what. So, Paul, you're going to be good at this calculating engineer. This is a big responsibility, and I'm going to need you throughout the day. We have an agreement that you're going to be good and not mess up at all?
Yes.
Okay, Paul. Raphael, could you be my backup? You think one of you guys could be my backup? All right, Paul. Right? Because I always want a contingency plan. Sam, could you back up Raphael?
Everybody get their calculator.
Okay, at 80 units times 750 in rent. Now, by the way, let me just pause right here. This is exactly how I build and have built all my companies, just like this. I'm thinking them. For those of you in the Platt program, you know we did the other, a few Platt calls ago, we did something called mind mapping. And this is exactly what I would be doing here. I'm mind mapping how to buy real estate with nothing, starting out with zero, okay? Because I know some of you may know some people in that situation, okay? That's why I'm doing this. So 80 times 750, Paul. 60 grand, Paul says. So far, so good. 60 grand times 12
720.
is 720 grand. Now, 720 grand. Interesting. Now, when you figure real estate and multifamily real estate out, I want you to consider that you should probably put in something that's called a vacancy factor. This vacancy factor is something that is going to be traditional to the market that you're investing in. Let's say that I'm investing here in Chicago and I'm working on the south side of the market. And I know that for a Class B building there, the occupancy rate is about 91%. That means that I have a 9% vacancy. I'm always going to figure when I'm working a deal, the vacancy factor in that deal. Now, I might get something from the real estate agent or broker that is going to be unrealistic to the market. Sometimes they'll put 95% occupancy in there. I will still underwrite it as 91. Does that make sense? So I want you to know vacancy factors are important. We're not going to worry about that here, however. I just want to show you the overall idea here. So if we take 720, that is going to be what we call our gross income, okay? So if we take $720,000, that's our income. What is our expense to income ratio? Do you remember when I talked about that yesterday? 40 to 45, okay? Somewhere in that realm. So what we're going to do is we'll cut it at 40 just to keep it good math, okay? So Paul, what's 40%? 288. 288, okay. That's our expenses. 432. Okay. And he says, so far, Paul, I'm pretty impressed. So this is our net operating income, okay?
You're factoring your vacancy in that 40%.
Yeah, pretty much. Normally I would take a real good serious look at what the vacancy factor is and all the expenses, but this is just real 30,000 feet up kind of thing, okay? So we've got a net operating income of 432,000. So as the morning progresses, you're going to see how I'm doing this exercise for probably 3 reasons. Number 1, so you get this new idea of creativity, but number 2, I'm leading you into the exercise of something called PAR. that I use every single day on multifamily unit buildings, okay? So 432, if we go to our skeleton, what does our skeleton tell us with regard to the real estate? Income minus expenses equals NOI, minus debt service equals cash flow. So far, we're good. The next one, this is the heart. The next one, maybe the debt service is kind of the genital region. I don't mean it to sound like that, or pelvic region. Pelvic region, right. So the debt service is the pelvic region. So let's figure the debt service. Now remember, we started this out as an 80-10-10. 80% bank financing, 10% seller financing, 10% down payment. Now, Paul, are you able to figure, okay, debt service and stuff on there, because on your iPhone, you've got an app. Is that what it is? Okay, very good. So Paul has an amortizing calculator, and Paul is going to put in some parameters. These parameters are going to be this. Let's use 6% interest. I would like to use an amortization of 25 years, okay? And what you're going to do is not take 80% of 4 million, you're going to take 90% of 4 million because we have a first and a second. We're just going to say that those terms are the same. Does everybody see that? So we really have 90% financing. So he's going to figure that out for me annually. Yep. So we're going to have our debt service per year.
281,616.
281,616. Okay. So if we subtract 281,616 from 432, we get what?
153.84.
153.
No, 150.
150. 384, and that is our cash flow. Now, if you take the 150, 384, and divide it by 12, you get what? 532 per month. Now, I know this seems like a big number, and I know we're kind of just theorizing here, but I'm telling you, most of my businesses in my career have been started with this very exercise. From the mind mapping to brainstorming to all of this stuff. The thing that I'm trying to point out with you here is if we did that consulting and we went out and we consulted with people how to drive their income on their property or drive the net operating income to drive the value on their property, that's, well, number one, a heck of a business. Why? You would not believe how many property owners have no clue about that. Absolutely no clue. What's the proof to me is when I see properties for sale. One of the things that could have got them out of the mess that they're in right now, the very reason they're looking to sell the property, is if they would have found ways to drive net operating income. Absolutely, positively. But they don't know those ways, or maybe they just don't want to put the time in. They're lazy, they're bad business people, they don't understand value in commercial real estate, something. I never try to say, well, why didn't he do that? Well, why wouldn't he do that? You know, I don't care about that. So I know there's an opportunity there. Number two, not only does it drive value, but by raising the net operating income of the property, giving suggestions of obviously rent raises, sub-meter in the building for water, all the things that we talked about, you're giving the owner more income in his or her pocket each and every month. That's pretty cool. That's really cool, okay? So I think that's double-sided value there. But to you, if you just did one of these every 6 months and you were able to raise $400,000 over a 2-year period, put that into real estate, kind of prime the pump kind of thing, you've just developed a $12,500 a month income stream to you, theoretically, okay? If this number's too big for you, cut it in half. Cut it in quarters. I don't care where you start, but I want you to get the overall thought process here. My point is, You can make money off of the knowledge that you have. You can make money off of the knowledge that you have. Selling knowledge is something that happens every day. It's why you're here in these seats in the first place. You could actually, if you had nothing today, by the knowledge that you know right now from what we learned yesterday, you could actually go out, hustle, create a business, develop a down payment, and theoretically put this to work so that in 24 months you've got a cash flowing income every single month. Now, $12,500 a month in cash flow, not enough to live on, but a good start, like I mentioned yesterday.